She sat on her.
Very high.
It's very high. And
I tried to sit on it once, but I was like, well, I'm going to hurt myself. Not really. Yeah, well, since I started working where I work, I haven't been teaching yoga outside. I taught yoga there. And I teach meditation.
I go to Everyday People a couple of times a week. I Jun-e on a Monday night. Yeah. It's a little bit spacey, but I really like her. She's just like, oh, I can't do that. I'm like, it's okay, neither can I, you know. So she's just very, very humble, I think. Yeah.
It's a good thing about that studio.
Yeah.
Very down to earth.
Yeah, and people don't seem to have these like, perfect speed bodies, which I also appreciate.
I mean, even when it was Phoenix studio when he started it, I mean, he does impossible things. Like he always has to be that spirit of God is not. He moved away.
Who owns it now?
Matt.
Oh, Matt Kane?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't realize he actually owned it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh.
Why am I blanking on his name?
Yeah, no,
Shinkai.
Yeah, no, I like him.
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah, I've done a couple of retreats with him.
He's a good yoga teacher.
servants and to all teachers of the true Dharma who transmitted the flame. Now we repay their compassionate blessings. We further offer this merit to all the Dharma protecting devas, to the Dharma protecting saints, to their spirit of this place, to the temple protecting spirits. While we pray for its flourishing of the true Dharma, peace in the land, harmony among nations, tranquility with the Sangha, wisdom and prosperity for countless supporters, continual turning of the two wheels. May we with all beings realize the Buddha way. Robert Lehman, Mildred Myers, Brian Tenzing, Javen, Gary Spoon, Dango Ridge, Akiya Hikashi, Marsha Izumi, Rona McIntosh, Rod Rayner, Julia Rayner, Masako, Kathy Clevenger, Elizabeth Starr Dillon Moran, Karen Pine, Bradley Charles Moores, Renee Nicole Good, Bobby Warren, Matthew McNerney, Tim Danforth, Morgan Hyde, Michael Rampoff, Lucy, Joel Fisher, and then to all those who have died in natural and human-made disasters, including acts of terrorism, violence, political persecution, and war. May they be serene through the transition we call death. We also dedicate this merit to Dave Devereux, David Piper, Betty Gordon, Chestnut Connolly, Danielle, Cindy, MJC, Stephen Mothers. May the heart of compassion illuminate their lives. We pray that all beings may prosper and all misfortunes cease. Zazen.
use the lights just a little bit. Just a little bit. Thank you. So, good morning. Here we are. There seems to be a lot here. So I think I'm a little discombobulated this morning, and I hope that won't be a difficulty, but that's just how it is. And when you're in this position, I notice when the speaker's speaking, there's the need, to talk to both sides, and not a tendency to somehow just shift over. So I told myself to remember that. This morning, so we usually begin with names. I'm Jun-e. And then you all are responsible for keeping the order.
Josiah.
Kisei.
Darren. Anyu.
Jacqueline. Christian. Lucas.
Stephen,
Ider.
Benjamin,
Carrie.
Zenki,
Natalie.
Anshin,
Jun-e.
Myogun,
GKA.
Iso.
Gyose.
Horaku.
Miyuki.
Emma,
Aaron.
Genpo.
Noah. Zazen. Bill. Charles. Danielle. Jisho.
Molly,
Paul.
Issei,
Erica.
Kishin,
Karuna. Shinu. Caleb.
This is
Sage.
Nate.
Randy.
Lewis.
Margaret. Sagan. Jackie. Tetsugen. Christopher. Rio. Paul. Kizan. Jiho. Mandy. Olivia. Oni. Harmony.
Natasha,
Mara.
Vanessa.
Shuho.
Bill,
Yoan.
Seth.
Is that it? Everyone's counted, everyone's spoken. All right, good morning.
Good morning.
So this talk this morning I titled Our Own Death. And I know I gave a talk some years ago about death, but that was from I was of course in a different place. All of you were not here. Some of you weren't here, and we're always in a different place. So what I've observed in the last, I don't know how long I've been thinking about this or aware of this, is that we have great difficulty talking about our own death. We've become much, much more open to grief. In the last 10 years, I think, we were, as Stephen Jenkins says in his book, Die Wise, a death-phobic society, culture. So at this point, I think grief is, we embrace it much more. We share it, we're open about it, we have rituals, and all of this has been a very, I think, excellent development. But when it comes to I am dying, how will I die? Thinking about this, talking about this is not comfortable. I'm not saying that it should be comfortable, but it's not comfortable. And as Buddhists, this is a primary event, obviously. So, therefore, I've been thinking a lot about it, and I think it's very difficult. And I would just encourage you all to have a moment's reflection about this, and if this is true for you. And of course, it probably becomes more true as people get older. But denial is very, very powerful. And I talked to someone recently, a long-term friend, someone who was part of this Sangha a long time, but isn't able to come anymore. And he's 94, I think, maybe 95, has several things going on, physically, of course, that he manages. And he said, I don't know how it came up, something about death. And he said, 3 times he said, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. And there we are, right? How many people, how long, how close do we get to that moment before we can actually know, actually admit, actually say, I'm dying? By the way, I forgot to say something. I want to go back and just say that I know there are people here who are currently dealing with the death of a close person. And I don't know, some of you may have very difficult situations going on for yourself or for others. So I want to be sure that you experience this as respectful of wherever you are in your own life around grief and death. That I'm aware, I don't know, but mostly, generally speaking, various people are dealing with different parts of this, so I'm aware of that. I just wanted to put that in the beginning. So I'm going to talk a bit about, I want to talk about our first great grief as humans, and that is learning about our own death. And when does that happen? How does it happen? What do you remember from your childhood? Did someone talk to you? Perhaps you had a close relative, a friend, a pet, an animal. Probably a great many people had some kind of experience, or perhaps parents just educated you. But that's not the same as your own realization that you will die, and that everything you love, everyone close to you, humans and creatures, will die. At what point do we internalize this and know this, and from then on know it? So I think that's also a useful thing to spend some time exploring. I spent my early childhood on a farm, and there's no way that it's abstract. So I think even if we're just told this in very clear, understandable terms as children, it's still abstract without experience. When I was, I don't know how old, maybe, but on the farm, of course, life and death is happening. Animals are raised for food, they're killed there, they're preserved there, and other animals simply die from old age, or people died more easily. A wound could become infected. There were no antibiotics. There was not a quick fix at the doctor. So going back to this, so I was probably between 5 and 6, and I was playing in the front yard of the house, and it was rural, and there was a road in front and everything. And I think I found a toad. I don't remember actually finding the toad, but I remember having the toad and just handling it. I don't know what, I didn't do anything, I didn't harm it, but I kept, hung out with the toad all afternoon. And at some point then realized the toad is dead. I think I knew that word, and it's not moving. And I remember feeling as though I was responsible. Well, I was, because probably that poor toad needed some water. So that was a very clear, direct experience that this toad is dead and it's not going to move again. During this same period of my childhood, I sometimes spent some days or a week perhaps with my grandparents. My grandmother had a great interest in death, and death was talked about. People died more. I think people just died more frequently in that life. But it was a community event. And my grandmother I think, went to all the local funerals, and these were people she knew. And of course, she took me with her. My mother wasn't so pleased when she found out, but I was very happy to go and see what I didn't like being left out of things. So she took me, and I knew before I went that it was, I don't know if it was at a small local church or if it was at the house where this family lived. The mother in the family had died, and I knew that she had 2 daughters who were within an age or so, a year or so of my age. And I became quite preoccupied with them. And I couldn't really, I had to somehow take it in that they would have no mother. I couldn't imagine not having my mother. So I was really wanting to see them. And we arrived, and the vivid picture from that funeral were the girls, whose name, I don't know if I ever knew their names. I certainly don't remember them. And one was a little older, a little taller than the other, and they were very pretty girls. And they had white dresses and white lace bonnets. And I thought they must be wearing white because it was their mother. And I felt so sad for them. And I still feel sad when I think of that picture. And of course, this was the middle of an Oklahoma summer, which means it was hot and humid. And I always remember, I don't know if it's an actual memory, that their faces were flushed. I don't think I spoke to them, but that stayed with me a long time. Well, I still have that vivid memory. And then I really, really knew if the toad wasn't enough and being on the farm, then this was really deeply the understanding that this could happen. This could and would happen somewhere in some far future to me, to everyone, every creature that I loved, that were close. So we all, in some place, in some point, in some way, learn this. And we carry then, this is our first grief as humans. And so really then, how do we spend our life living with our shadow companion of death that probably whispers in our ear? And that's our practice, right? We're here. And so it's great good fortune to be here, given this certainty. But I also, so then coming back to this observation, so part of the way we deal with it is not talking about it, is not thinking about it. We can, avoidance is very powerful, and we use it really well, and we're able to use it, and it's probably necessary in some ways, depending how much. Or when we're young, we think, I can remember doing this, thinking about my age, thinking, oh, I don't really have to think about death because it's a long ways away. I have time. Always this refrain, I have time. Well, I don't have time now. I used up my time. So that's an interesting place. It's an interesting place to be. But back to your own wood. So what are your tools? What do you use to avoid dealing with this? And what happens when you sit and have a long thought? Can you picture yourself dead? Do you have fantasies or imaginings about how you will die, how old you will be? What do you want for yourself? There is this way of looking at death as the long preparation for liberation. This is how come we, well, I don't want to say that. But we, in this practice, being here, doing what we're doing, certainly there is I believe, the belief or the faith that this is a path of liberation. And death is that final release. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. I don't know anything about dying itself, so I'm not talking about our own psychological state, emotional state, spiritual state, because I haven't done it. There are all kinds of opinions, of course, and reported experience. But at this moment, how do we think we'll die? And how is it that we are so reluctant? So is there fear? Most times there's fear. Humans are not comfortable with the unknown, and unless it's an adventure of some sort, like running a river or something, where you could die, but not so likely. So I think there's fear, and this comes right up to self, the idea of myself. And that's a little bit on down the road, but speaking of self, how do we let go? I didn't even see when we started. Okay, I'm just realizing I should watch the clock a little bit. So moving on a bit, it's the classic, almost cliche, I think, to talk about the piece of paper, which has two sides. And one's to think of it as death on one side and life on the other. And guess who's in between us? The paper. So how do we live there? That's the question I started with. How do we live? Well, hopefully we live as fully as we can. Hopefully that's what we're doing here, is being able to live this life, to explore this possibility. So now I probably lost my place. Oh well. And our own death. So coming back to that, I want you to take a moment and think about how we avoid. My own case, I did not grow up with fear of death. I wasn't a very fearful child. And as I say, there was a certain atmosphere that was normal, being on the farm for those early years. And then it was the Second World War, and deaths were being reported every day. And you hoped very much that no one would come to the door. Well, that was more death. As we say, death is happening now in ways that are very disturbing for us. So this piece of paper is, if we think of it as us, and are we able to live in this truth and at the same time live fully and present in our own life? This is the ongoing work, the ongoing practice. And I think it's a little bit, this morning I had this image of a teeter-totter. Children still do teeter-totters in the playgrounds, I think. And so there is a point, if you have someone near your own weight, where you balance, where you can each, no one's up and no one's down. Death and life are balanced. And everyday life doesn't exclude death, and everyday life is participated in fully as we are able. But, sometimes death is up and sometimes life is up and we forget all about it because we're so engaged. Life, if we're more or less okay, is so compelling. As growing up, getting into adulthood is a lot of work. That's an ongoing, difficult, and it takes our energy. So just getting grown up we're not probably focusing on death. Or if we are, It's from a very lonely place that we're struggling to actually be in this life. Well, I don't know. So think about the teeter-totter. I think it's an ongoing balancing. We are always in the process. It doesn't stop even if we go to sleep. The unconscious is carrying on its own. But so we're always in this process of up or down, keeping the balance. And that keeping the balance takes a certain intention, a certain focus. Which doesn't mean, so that doesn't mean excluding the reality of our own death. It might be useful to think about it every day, and maybe we do, or we have a whisper, or we have a reminder of someone very close to us dying, or being in some situation where death is a possibility sooner than later. There is another approach that thinks about, we can think about death this way. If we have some age, for example, or something wrong, something happening that we don't know how that's going to go, you can actually do a kind of programmed, not programmed, but planned step-by-step work with your own dying and death in a conscious way. And this can be seen as certainly spiritual practice. And it also can be experienced as, I always don't quite like prepared for some reason. To be, I don't know that we're ever prepared, even if we would do this kind of a practice. But I think there is a way that becomes embracing. So can we actually imagine that we could embrace our own death? Can we? I don't know. I mean, we can say yes, but when the moment comes, we don't know. And so we don't know the circumstances exactly. We don't know the timing exactly. If we have a chronic illness that's going to kill us, then we can have some understanding, some knowledge, some prediction. That in many, many times is not accurate. This is the reality that makes it so uncomfortable. Because we're trained, especially in this culture, to plan, to have a plan. We do have to have some kind of plan for disposal, for what we do is going to be done with this vessel that's left that we've lived in. How do we move beyond identifying with our body? This fantastic, incredible, unbelievable organism that we are has evolved to a place that will live, if at all possible. Life will sustain. This is what we're geared to do. This is what our body, this organism is geared to do, is to stay alive. Unless we're suicidal, or unless we have come to a place that life is, that we are not really useful anymore, this organism, to live any kind of meaningful life. My mother, I don't know, it is maybe a week before she actually died, she took some frozen chicken. She liked to make chicken soup, and she dropped it, and it kind of bounced across the kitchen. And she got really mad, and she said, I never wanted to live, to just live. So how many of us can say that? And she really wanted to die, and she had it all set up. If anyone was ever ready, my mother was. She was a long-time practitioner of Self-Realization Fellowship, Paramahansa Yogananda, and she really believed she would meet her guru. And if anybody ever did, I'm sure she did. She had a strong will. And so she called. It's a sort of an interesting story. A few days, a week, I don't remember, and she was dying of technically congestive heart failure, but caused by failing kidneys. So she called everyone to say goodbye, and she was carrying on and making jokes. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, now where are we going? And she said, well, you know, I'm going to be very embarrassed in the morning if I'm not dead. I said, well, I think you probably should get ready for being embarrassed, Mother, because I don't see any dying energy right here, right now. Oh my goodness. So, of course, she wasn't dead in the morning, and she was kind of mad. Well, I don't know about this. And then the morning, so at some point, because she stopped her medication, with congestive heart failure, if you're not taking your diuretic, your heart can't do the job. So she decided to stop everything like that. She stopped the diuretic, whatever else, and not much medication that she took. And so then, I think in 3 days, she was coming out. My granddaughter and daughter lived fairly close, so we had shifts and took turns being there with her. She had this little house, so she had the illusion of living alone. That wasn't quite accurate, but it was. So I think that night was my granddaughter was cooking, and my mother came to get at the table, and she stumbled and sort of half fell and couldn't manage. So we got her to the bed. It was a small house, and I could see that room. I could watch her from the kitchen. So she was not doing well at all, and she said, well, I want some morphine. She knew about morphine because her sister had died of cancer and had morphine. I said, Mother, I think if you're not in pain, I don't know that we can get any. She said, oh, my abdomen, my So I called the hospice worker, and they said, well, if someone can come to the hospital and get it, we'll give her, a small amount. So when my granddaughter was there, she went and got it. I think Mother had a little sip. And of course she, not so long, she became unconscious. My dog Reuben, who adored her, was with her, slept by her. And I tried to not sleep, but I did finally. And Reuben was still there in the morning, and my mother was still breathing. So I think I called my oldest son and told him that she was still with us. And then I walked around this area to make tea. And my granddaughter stopped by to see if I needed anything. She was in college at that point. And then I decided, I had tapes of Yogananda's chants. He had written them. They were chanted, in the ashram or something. So I had all these tapes of her favorite chants. I got one, put it down by the bed, and then turned it on. And I believe this is total truth. An energy wave started at her head, and it undulated like this down her body. And I think she died within 5 minutes. And so I saw she's breathing. I then go to put this tea on, and then I've just called my son. Then I look over and I realize she had taken, while my back was turned, she took her last breath. And we were able, legally you can keep your person for a day or two. So in Buddhism, that's a very good thing to do. So I watched her energy leave. I watched her body change. And, my daughter was there by then, so on and so on. So we were able to do everything we wanted. We were able to wash her, dress her. People stopped by. and left little things to go with her. And so I was hoping, pray, that she met her guru. Anyway, but I just tell that little story because it was both of my parents. My stepfather also was in a different place by that time, living still in California. And he had everything prepared. My other son had spent the weekend with him, and he suspected that his grandfather was preparing, and all he had to do was stop his medication because he had serious heart disease and lung disease, and if he didn't take his medication, some coughing episode could easily have triggered a heart attack. So the way it looked, counting his meds, we all believed he made a choice, and because he actually had bladder cancer, and there was no treatment by then. So they both gave us a really good example. And I remember my older son saying that being with the way they did this caused him to have less fear because they looked incredibly comfortable. Anyway, I wasn't going to tell that story, but I think it's okay. And to just go back to us, to living your own death, to being in some kind of intimate connection with this reality of your own death. And part of that is really accepting, which is almost not possible. The self cannot imagine, cannot really experience no self as long as self is here doing the job. And self doesn't want to leave. Self is formed itself over time and is here to run the show. So all the memories, incredible accumulation of experience in a lifetime. Do we really take that in? I think it's almost impossible. If we were to play our life backwards, moment to moment, we wouldn't have enough years to experience our life backwards, moment to moment. And some of that time we're just unconscious. We have to be, because we have to do the dishes and we have to pay the bills and we have to. The computer is going to take a lot of your time. Our time. So this consciousness that we are, at least that we think we are, we have, or do we have consciousness? Are we consciousness? I think that's an interesting thing to explore. Anyway, this consciousness that says I am me doesn't know how to not be me. How do we know how to be no self? Right there in the contradiction in the sentence, right? But however, what is going to happen is all of this life that I just talked about will become nothing. I don't know how to explain that to you, but that is emptiness. I had a brief experience after I had some weird amnesia experience and was trying to deal with medication, and I just thought maybe I'm going to die right now, I don't know, anytime soon, and I was in some kind of contemplation of that, and so I think there's a great stripping away. But I don't know. I think so. And I had that sort of experience. And it wasn't frightening. It wasn't anything. There was no feeling. There was no emotion. It was stark. And it was, none of it matters now. None of it has enormous meaning now. So that's all I could say about that experience. It's not really explainable. But as far as I got with it, I consider it emptiness. And we never really understand that when we say it in the various chants. We say it. Do we stop to think, what does that really mean? How will I experience emptiness? Well, that's what I would say about it. But it was a completely unprepared for, not doing anything, not having any idea this particular thing could happen. However, it was a very genuine experience, and that's all I can really say about it, because I really thought in that period of time that I might be really close to dying, and I was in deep contemplation of that. That's all. So I think that our time is pretty much okay, and I do have a few readings, and if we're going to have, and I think I didn't leave so much out, I don't know. But I encourage you to examine a little bit yourself. And where are you with this? You know, we assume that older people are more close, are more in touch with this, are more aware. But that's not, and that may not be true. Because, of course, this is true for all of us, however old we are. The door is there. So keep that teeter-totter balanced, and good luck. So I say so too much in these talks. It's very annoying to me. Well, when you go listen to your talk afterwards, for example, it's like, oh no, my God. So I decided on the order here. I have 3 things, and I'm going to read first, and just notice that the issue of time is kind of a theme here. So I first will read a poem that I think many of you know by the marvelous, ever marvelous Emily Dickinson. I think I can see, hopefully, because I could not stop for death. And I'm sure many of you know this poem, studied it if you were English majors or not, maybe. So, because I could not stop for death, because I could not stop for death, he kindly stopped for me. The carriage held but just ourselves and immortality. We slowly drove, he knew no haste, and I had put away my labor and my leisure too. I'm sorry, I think it's the light. Maybe you could raise it just a bit over there. Old eyes, you know. Thank you. I'll read that again. He slowly drove, he knew no haste, and I had put away my labor and my leisure too, for his civility. We passed the school where children played. At recess in the ring, we passed the fields and gazing grass. We passed the setting sun. We paused before a house that seemed a swelling in the ground. The roof was scarcely visible, the cornice in the ground. Since then, the centuries, and yet fresh, shorter than the day, and since then, 'tis centuries, and yet feels shorter than the day. I first surmised the horses' heads were toward eternity. I'm sorry, it's the eyes.
Jun-e, do you want someone to read it for you?
What?
You want someone to read it for you? Okay.
I did. Thank you. This is the second poem that I'm reading is by our very own Angel, who wrote this, I'm not sure if he wrote it at the time Satsuki, his youngest daughter, was dying, or if he wrote it after her death. When time arrives, clock game is up. Spinning hands fold in to still point center, holding nothing. Spaciousness, a vine-filled forest hillside. Mind, a million billion amber leaves. Here a pale moon hugs low, the bare crest of tall and silent trees. And then we have to have a little Dogen. And Dogen wrote a piece called Birth and Death. It's not very long, but it is a bit to read. So I'm debating reading the whole thing. Are you up for the whole thing? It's just partially 2 pages. Okay? I can abbreviate it, but as you listen to Dogen, and I am not a Dogen expert or anything close to that, but I think as you read or hear Dogen, to not get caught up too much in figuring anything out, but really, if you can hear it with your body as well as your mind, I think that's good. To let it just compost, or let it move through you. So this is Birth and Death, and this is in the Moon in a Dewdrop, that collection of writings. And again, would you put the light up?
It's as high as it can go, I think.
What?
I think it's as high as it can go. They're all the way up. But we could probably provide an extra.
There's actually, there's a switch there that.
Oh, thank you very much. Much better. Thank you. Because a Buddha is in birth and death, there is no birth and death. It is also said, because a Buddha is not in birth and death, a Buddha is not deluded by birth and death. These statements are the essence of the words of the 2 Zen masters, Jie and Dingshan. You should certainly not neglect them, because they are the words of those who attain the way. Those who want to be free from birth and death should understand the meaning of these words. If you search for a Buddha outside birth and death, it will be like trying to go to the southern country of you with your spear heading towards the north, or like to see the Big Dipper while you're facing south. You will cause yourself to remain, all the more in birth and death, and lose the way of emancipation. Just understand that birth and death is itself nirvana. There is nothing such as birth and death to be avoided. There is nothing such as nirvana to be sought. Only when you realize this are you free from birth and death. It is a mistake to suppose that birth turns into death. Birth is the phase that is an entire period of itself, with its own past and future. For this reason, in Buddha Dharma, birth is understood as no birth. Death is a phase that is an entire period of itself, such with its own past and future. For this reason, death is understood as no death. In birth, there's nothing but birth, and in death, there's nothing but death. Accordingly, when birth comes, face and actualize birth. And when death comes, face and actualize death. Do not avoid them or desire them. The birth and death is the life of Buddha. If you try to exclude it, you will lose the life of Buddha. If you cling to it, trying to remain in it, you will also lose the life of Buddha, and what remains will be the mere form of Buddha. Only when you don't dislike birth and death or long for them do you enter Buddha's mind. However, do not analyze or speak about it. Just set aside your body and mind, forget about them, and throw them into the house of Buddha. Then all is done by Buddha. When you follow this, you are free from birth and death and become a Buddha without effort or calculation. Who then continues to think? There is a simple way to become a Buddha. When you refrain from unwholesome actions, are not attached to birth and death, and are compassionate toward all sentient beings, respectful to seniors, and kind to juniors, not excluding or desiring anything. With no designing thoughts or worries, you will be called a Buddha. Do not seek anything else. So, there I said it again. Anyway, we're finished, I think. I'm not finished, but for now. And I think there's time for a few comments or questions, or not, as you wish. Thank you all for listening.
Jun-e, I was talking to a younger friend recently. He's in his 30s, I'm in my 50s. And we were talking about what we were discussing last week. When is it appropriate for us to become involved in protest action? And we both noted that many of the people participating in protests now are seniors. And I reflected on that, and I thought, oh, that must be very liberating to be, as I assume they are, closer to death, and therefore and freer of responsibility, and liberated to act with moral courage in a way that maybe I'm not, or maybe my younger friend doesn't feel like he can do. Can you speak to the liberation, that feeling of liberation that I'm talking about?
Okay. Well, this phrase that went through my mind was less left to lose. So, but not to make fun of this. I think it's a great question. I could speak for myself. So, part of my perspective about that is we already did it. We already have been in the streets. People risked their lives. In the civil rights movement, people died. You know, I belonged to an organization, I was in New York, and I belonged to an organization, a couple of different things were going on, other groups, that was preparing for the Freedom Summer, which I don't know if anyone knows about this, but some people do. And it was very planned. It had been happening already that there were freedom centers in the South, and these were primarily to register voters, black voters. And this could be dangerous. I mean, the Klan was active in most of this, not even confined to, you know, what we think of as the South. So it was dangerous. So this was a planned summer, planned way in advance. And one of the people in my group was William Kunstler. If you've seen the movie about the Chicago riots, he's their lawyer. And this was way before that, of course. So he and his wife were in this particular civil rights group, and very much part of that planning. She still wore her tattoo of her numbers from concentration camp. Their daughter was going to go, and we all knew, we all were clear that white people were going to die. young white people were going to die. And we knew black people are dying, but until white people die, it's a different story. So so their daughter went, and we went for a day to Washington D.C., a busload of people, and when William Kunstler was meeting with Katzenbach, who was Bobby Kennedy's assistant attorney general, begging, pleading, arguing all day for federal marshals for Mississippi. They were denied because of states' rights. So no protection in Mississippi for these young people that are going to go do the work at these freedom centers. I'm telling this story because it shows what was happening, and it wasn't safe. So within days, 3 civil rights workers disappeared. One man was blind, the other 2 were, I don't know if they were, anyway, so everybody knows they've been murdered. And days go by and there's no sign of them, they can't be found. So people went to DC to sit in at the Justice Department. I think my husband, close friends, all these people were teachers at the local high school. So that didn't change. Now they sent federal marshals. And so those 3 people were eventually found buried in a dike. And of course they had been killed before they were buried. And that's just one story. There was a woman, a white woman, she was driving people. She had 4 children, I think, and she was shot in the car and killed. There were others, but so this gives you some sense. If I was watching television, I don't know when, one evening, and I was watching the Selma March, and I saw the line of march attacked, and people running, people being hit. And a week later, we marched through Harlem. And so, excuse me, it always hard to talk about. So I think for us, for a lot of people younger than me, I'm probably, people have been through this. Even if they didn't do anything actively, they were aware. It was in the news every night. And way before this action, people were doing ride-ins on the buses, sit-ins at cafes, Montgomery, Alabama, being water hosed with fire hoses, on and on and on. 3 girls blow up a dynamite a church in Montgomery, and 3 girls are killed in Sunday school. So for us, it's like, it's as though the work didn't matter. It did matter. People changed. There was change, but it wasn't total. It wasn't enlightenment. It wasn't So, by the way, after George Floyd's death, and all the publicity about police brutality doubled. Or at least I read that. So I think that's where the great sorrow, it's great sorrow to watch this happening. That was, even though things were hard and difficult and not just, nevertheless it wasn't like it is. There wasn't this level of, I don't know what to say about it, but I think I've said enough. It was a long answer. Anyway, yes. What's your name?
Natasha.
Natasha.
I want to thank you for sharing your story about your mother's passing.
Could you speak a little louder?
Yes. I want to thank you for sharing your story about your mother's passing. That was beautiful. I also similarly got to have a similar experience with my mom when she passed.
Mm.
I got to feel her pass through and feel her energy as she shifted. My question for you, I just would love your thoughts on when people pass unexpectedly, perhaps alone. What is the purpose of that and the difference between having that moment with
Right.
the person and then
Right.
versus not having that.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the question, and thank you for speaking about your mother. I was a therapist counselor, and in my experience, sudden death is enormously difficult. All grief and death and loss is difficult, but sudden death has its own impossibility. Because first of all, we don't have time. We don't have time to slowly absorb this reality. And we resist it. We resist that. Our brain, we're constructed that way. I think it's protection. We can't take it in. So there's that. And there is everything you described. If the person was alone, or if you're just looking out the window watching your husband mow the lawn, and he sits down, and he's dead. These things actually happen. And I just think it's very difficult. I think it prolongs the process of internalizing the reality. And sometimes people might get some sign. I don't know. I don't judge those things. My middle son died in Europe this spring. And of course the information was sudden for me to receive. And I told the person calling me, the consulate from Krakow, Poland, that he was a scammer and I was not going to talk to him. And I did that 2 times. I hung him on this poor man who was doing everything right, who was really wonderful. So there you have it. I couldn't take it in. I wasn't going to admit that reality. And I think that's probably a common reaction, even if the person is in front of you. So I just encourage people to look for support during that time, to talk to the person, even though the person's not there. We don't know. So I would encourage talking to the person and keeping that up. A friend of mine whose son was not sudden, her first son's death, 2 sons. She had ashes made into a medallion, very nice, and she wears it every day, and she talks to her second son every day. And she's not especially religious, but this has been her practice since his death. So I encourage any kind of ritual, talking, reminders, lighting a candle every day for however long you need to, making of an altar, whether you call it that or not, or just a place where you have a candle, some incense, burning incense, dedicating that every day for however long. Usually people, I think, I don't know, but for sure maybe a year, whatever works. And I think that's what we have and what we can do, and accept all the support that's offered, and reach out if you need to, or someone needs to, and it's hard. And eventually, I think there's a sort of an experience there, maybe, that nothing matters, that all this life is ridiculous and superficial. But that will change. And thank you.
One real quick.
Would you say your name again?
Oh, my name's Paul.
Paul.
So, my mom died, and it was very much, we knew what was coming on, but she was alive, that she's gone. And now my dad is going through Lewy body dementia, which is a completely different thing.
Yes, that's
because
right.
I've seen what he is. Like this was dad, and my, big powerful figure in my life is like dissolving. Like the self and everything is dissolving. And it's kind of threw me into an existential crisis, like, what are we if we can just completely fall apart like that?
Absolutely.
And does Zen have any particular insights into that?
Into dementia?
Yeah, or just like, yeah, things like that.
Well, I think that's a really good question. I think it's a good area to explore. I don't offhand know of anything.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the thoughts that occurs to me, or an idea that occurs to me at the moment, is this dissolution, this relinquishment that we, if we're conscious, we can somewhat participate in. I don't know that that's possible. However, it is relinquishment. It is visually before us that our consciousness of who we have been, of who we are, is taken. So it's perhaps what I've been talking about. However, it happens before us to that person.
Yes.
Rather than us being conscious or having some measure of consciousness in our own death, that person doesn't have that, but we are seeing it happen. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yes, it does, actually.
And I think what you can do, I assume you can do or do, and I've just had a close friend whose husband was in memory care, I don't know, maybe not so long, but has been in dementia some years, which of course was progressive.
Mm-hmm.
And a brilliant man, a fantastic, wonderful professor, a lovely man. And that all went away, that all got taken.
Yeah.
Right, and so we see it before our eyes, that will happen for all of us in its own way, but not perhaps, we don't have this prolonged happening. And I think it's very, very challenging because you're grieving all the way. The grief is not, going to be when this person dies. The grief is happening all along the way. And I think as present as you can be to honoring this person and respecting how they are. And I know it's difficult. So thank you for the question.
Thank you.
I have a question. So, about the week before my mother died, my grandparents came to her. And my sister, she lived in Arkansas, my sister called me and told me I needed to come home, that my grandparents had been to see my mother. And it struck me that that was pretty important. And so I went home and my mother died 3 or 4 days later. But I've heard of these things before, for those who have gone on before us.
For what now?
That those who have gone on before us come back just before we die. Can you speak a little on that?
I don't have any information on that. I have read those stories. It was very popular. I don't know when that was. I don't know. Somewhere in the 80s maybe. There was a book by somebody named, was it Moody? I don't know. Anyway, there was a lot of attention for a while there. And I don't know. I've heard stories of people, including the person who used to be here, Tenkan, and who had a near-death, he had had a near-death experience. He had fallen, I think he almost drowned. He fell off the ship or something, he was in the Navy. He said nothing happened to him, nothing. He had, well, you would have.
It's very
He kind of liked it that nothing happened because, he was had a strong bias against any woo-woo kind of stuff and anything about religion. Yeah, this was ongoing, and so I've heard other stories. My son's close friend, I think, was having heart surgery. And also had nothing. while he was, I don't know, maybe his heart stopped. So I don't know. Other people have experiences. Some people have, in my family, have had dreams of Charles coming to them, my son that died. There were all kinds of synchronistic events around that. I like to be a believer, but that's as much as I could say. It's not that I have absolute belief. I know people that do. I think my teacher leans into there, and I hope so. Sounds like a trip, But I that's not an area that I could say.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Before we close, I wanted to mention that if this topic or this conversation is compelling to you, or you'd like to explore it more, Sangha Elder Jun-e is leading a course about our own death on Wednesdays at 2 p.m., which will start up during the practice term. So please look out for that registration information in the digest.
Thank you. I would have forgotten all about it. All right. Thank you.
I have an announcement. There are many things that are hard to talk about. One of them is money. And if you look at our programming guide, you'll see there's all these offerings in there. All of them are free of charge and donated by the generosity and sincerity of our teachers and elders. And we can practice generosity by thinking about how to compensate, how to let go of those thoughts all the time of whether we're, okay financially. That letting go practice can be quite helpful for this whole connection of beings that come here together. And thank you for considering various ways you can donate to the temple, including making a monthly donation, using the dana bowls that are on the Ingawa and in the front of the temple, and by spending time working with others at the temple. So thank you for your generosity.
I have an announcement to remind everybody of the Kanzeon Committee. We are here to listen to the community's needs and provide support however we can. In the past, we've done rides to and from temple, or appointments, or offered meals or small financial contributions. So if there's anything you need, please reach out to one of us. Thank you.
A quick announcement. My name is Shuho and Paul, and I welcomed you to the temple today. If you have a question, I know we have new people today. If you have a question about the service or the temple itself, come see one of us. We're happy to talk with you. Thank you.
If you've been looking to spend time with more folks in the temple and get to know folks in a smaller setting, the fundraising committee is putting together Sangha circles that will meet once a week for 8 weeks, starting the week of March 30th. There's a notice in the bulletins. You can sign up by emailing me.
And you're saying fun.
F-U-N, yes. No money involved.